Well,
No
Grant
worries.
said that she's gonna log out, log back in.
Okay.
Call the May 20th meeting to order. It should be noted that all members are present except Commissioner Larson. Approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Approval of the Monday, May 15th minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
Approve. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Regular business. Consideration and possible action on the report of the police department on the monthly traffic enforcement unit traffic safety plan. Sergeant.
I'm not on the, I don't think I'm on the email list for the agenda and the minutes.
Okay.
I don't know if I can, whoever the picture of that.
Should be.
Sorry.
There's the lady to do that.
Just making sure Sergeant handles on an email list the distribution of the minutes.
Okay, yeah. So we got your report.
All right, so, looking back from the, us data we have is from April. Month of April, we had a total of 173 crashes in the city. 18 of which were injury and 1 fatality. It was at Ontario Greenbrier. A vehicle failed to stop for a stop sign. It was T-boned by another car coming down Ontario, resulting in a fatal at the at-fault driver. We're still finish up the crash investigation on that. Hopefully have that done here in the next couple of weeks. So we can meet with their family and let them know what happened.
That's gotta be tough.
That was 799 traffic stops, resulted in just over 700 citations, about 700 warnings, and 29 OWIRS. As far as speeding still continues to be our biggest issue. We have, most of our complaints come from that. Right now we have our speed trailers out at Nicolay and Church, as well as one at Mason and Greenwood on the far west side. Also, far west side, we had a couple more speed boards out. You get the construction going on Packerland and Parkwood. They had a lot of complaints there, and people aren't realizing that it drops down from the normal 35 down to 25. So we got speed boards there, and I was sent out the other day, and 8 traffic stops in like an hour and a half of 40 or more. And then Haven Place, we get a lot of complaints. Last summer, we had Officer Stone, I think, wrote 50 or 60 tickets out there for speeding in the 25 zone on Haven Place. If you're not familiar, that's the far west side, a little side road. So we just put a couple of speed boards out there, so we'll be collecting data there and analyzing how bad the issue is. May 5th, we had a big deployment for the Cinco de Mayo. I think we talked about that last meeting. Went actually pretty well. There's the traffic lights inadvertently helped us. I think they're programmed for maybe a little better on Sunday evenings. That they go to flash. Main Elizabeth, Main Abrams, Limekiln, and with them flashing, it made it a little more difficult because of the everything's normal traffic for that time for people to turn left, but actually kept the vehicles moving, which ended up helping us. In the future, is there a way to change that programming temporarily? Or is it just stuck as it is?
No, there is.
Okay, so if we decided that we wanted to have them working normally for a time, or have them flash in,
Possibly.
possibly. But I think it came to that, with the flashing, like I said, it really helped keep people moving, so we didn't have the typical issues that we have with people doing burnouts and.
The traffic engineer who used to program the lights now works in Madison.
Okay. So there's a way.
So that's something you would like to see in the future?
I think if we have big events like that, yeah, that would help. That if it's, it's weekend night that it isn't normally going to be flashing like that or something, that if we were to be able to program it to that way, that would help. We get a meeting later on this week to go over, debrief everything that happened that day, but in different ways we can make things even better. But in the end, we had no major incidents. We had a lot of officers out, state patrol really came in big, and I think they had about 10 state patrol troopers out. And, we had a lot of traffic stops, wrote a lot of tickets, but it was all for minor stuff, no big incidents that we ended up with.
Okay.
So I think all in all, it was a success that day.
Anything else, Sergeant?
We have June coming up. I got just put our schedule out for the June deployments for our traffic grants. We got 8 OWI patrols out, 4 nights of speed, 2 pedestrian safety stuff, and 2 clicker ticket stuff. So we're starting to do our Frogger stuff this next month. We're going to do a June, August, and September one. And that's where we have somebody set up crossing the road, doing the crosswalk safety education. And that one's mainly just for education, to get people safe. So we're coordinating that with one of them's going to be with the farmer's market on June 5th. So at least 4 officers out down by the farmer's market area, doing some extra pedestrian safety. Like I said last time, our biggest safety thing in the city is between the speed and pedestrians getting struck, or majority of our fatalities. So trying to get education on that, and get people as safe as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a motion to accept the report of the police department?
Motion to accept the report.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Number 2 is consideration with possible action on a warrant and analysis for the intersection of Durham Road and Wiggins Way to determine a need for a yield or stop control. Alder
Chair-
Grant.
Chair, with that in mind, I would suggest that suspension of the rules to take up items 2 and 3 jointly. They
Okay.
are the same request and neighboring streets to each other. So
Oh,
I think
I'll
fine.
make a motion.
Alder Grant and the resident who are here would probably like to discuss both of those items at the same time.
Good
in
idea.
concert with each other.
It's been moved by the Alder to take 2 and 3 in mass. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kasia. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Items 2 and 3, Alder Grant, thank you for joining us this evening. Would you like
Thank you
to-
very much.
Would you like to comment first?
So I've had both of these roads kind of brought to my attention. They are at this moment an uncontrolled intersection. And I think what's difficult is a lot of the roads around it are controlled. So for example, Edinburgh has a yield sign, and Paula Street is at this time a dead end, and that is where the resident lives. But more houses are being built over there. And I think the issue with Wiggins is a lot of people, because of Red Smith School, will utilize Wiggins Way to get to their home instead of to dodge the traffic by Sussex. So I know I've reached out to staff about this before, and it was kind of just, educating on how adding signs can be dangerous. But I think and I can let the resident talk, but I think most people would like to just see a yield sign. I understand when you change an intersection from what people are used to, it could cause an accident. But I think a lot of people aren't aware that it's actually an uncontrolled intersection because there are so many stop signs in our neighborhood. I've witnessed cars almost collide, and I understand we kind of rate things off of accidents, but I know a lot of people don't want to wait for something tragic to happen before we make steps. I would like to hear what staff has to say for recommendation, but for Durham and Wiggins, because Durham comes to an end, even just a yield sign from the Durham side approaching Wiggins, to me makes a lot of sense. And then the yield signs for Paula Street approaching Durham seems to make sense. But again, I can let the resident talk on that and then hear from staff.
Okay, thank you, Alder. Would the resident identify yourself and
Motion
feel
open
free
the
to...
floor.
Yes, we'll have a motion to open the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Welcome, You're
Thank
free
you
to
for having
speak.
me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you can.
Hi there, I'm Carrie Malik. I moved in Paula Street, 3441 Paula Street, March 1st. And within 2 weeks, I was messaging Alder Grant about all the times I've almost been hit by either Amazon drivers, postal office, and then several minivans. And it just keeps continuing. It's really nerve-wracking for me. I have 4 children that like to play in the area. Paula's only going to get bigger as we get more and more houses in that area. I don't think a stop sign is needed. I think it's more of a yield. But it's more of the bigger vehicles that I'm seeing. It's not even trying to stop. They'll just go right through Paula, through Durham to drop things off.
Any questions of our
Yeah.
guests?
I mean, we've talked about a number of intersections. Which one is the actual problem intersection? Or are there multiple?
Right here is Durham and Edinburgh, or Durham and Wiggins is one of them, and Durham and Paula is the second.
Okay. So it's really, the problem is more on Durham at those 2 intersections.
Well, and
Yes.
this portion of, this is a 2023 maybe aerial. This portion of Paula is platted.
Okay, it's platted but not completed.
Correct.
Okay.
Do you mind if I say one more thing?
No, please.
So a lot of times I'll actually take Wiggins to Durham to Paula because I feel like that's actually safer than driving down Paula. Because that's where I usually get hit is between Paula and Durham, but it seems to slow down a little bit more by Wiggins than it does by Paula.
Okay. Any more questions from commissioners? If not, let's go back into regular session. Is there such a motion?
Make a motion to go back into regular session.
Is there a second? There is a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Director Grenier, what are your thoughts on these 2 items?
Just taking a look at how the streets lay out, it looks like Durham was always anticipated to be the major street. Does not come down to Scottwood. I think there may be some wetlands in here. But from Wiggins Way all the way up to Church, that's the major. So I would imagine that under study, if traffic control or stop control was recommended, it would likely be to stop Paula and Wiggins or yield Paula and Wiggins to Durham in the future. Staff would recommend, refer to staff for study, and we can bring a recommendation back at the next meeting.
Okay.
I have a question.
And it'll definitely be before school goes in, so
Yeah.
if anything is required or recommended for implementation out there, we have time to get the 90-day trial started before school.
Right. Alder Stevens?
Sure. So if we were just to do yield signs, do we still have to do a study?
We have to do a study to see what we got for traffic out there. I think we may have we may have some of the numbers. We might be able to turn it around quicker. I don't think this is going to be exhausted by any stretch of the imagination.
Sure.
Yeah,
Like stop signs, I could see a study, but if we just do yield, maybe we just bypass.
Well, I do want to go back and talk to the acting traffic engineer and see what the recommendations are out there.
Okay.
Steve,
Thank
is there a timeline on the extension of that platted street? Is that Paula? Is there a developer actively working on that?
But, yeah, because he did record the plat, and you typically don't want to record the plat until you're ready to sell lots.
Yep.
I think there are 4 or 5 lots sold and homes either built or under construction on that extension of Paula, so it's about half built out with the half block.
Okay.
So I would imagine sooner rather than later to go down to Paula. And
Okay.
my assistant director does speak with that developer on a fairly regular basis.
Okay. And when you do that study, are you going to model it and
We're going to take a look at
that
it, assuming
into
that
effect?
Paula's in. If we're going to make recommendations at this time, let's make them for the long term.
Okay.
Okay, Alder Grant, did you have any other comments?
Yes, thank you. One other thing too I forgot to mention is, and I'm sure Director Grenier is aware of this, but they are talking sooner than later also about a development behind Sussex Road, so just something to keep in mind that I think a lot more people will start utilizing Wiggins even more than they do already to again avoid that traffic. I've seen the design, a lot of traffic is going to pick up on Sussex, so just something to keep in mind. And then also, with being so close to a school, we have a lot of kids in this neighborhood, and a lot of kids walk to school, so I think they would benefit from the slower traffic as well, or, you know, being directed with signs to slow people down a little bit as well.
Okay. Thank you, Alder.
Thank you.
There is a recommendation from the director for the staff to study this issue and bring it back, hopefully our next meeting. Is there a motion to approve that recommendation? There is a motion from Alder Stevens. Is there a second?
A second.
There's a second from Dan. Any further comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, ladies. Number 4, refer back from request for April 15th. Consideration of possible action on the request by Alder Stevens to amend the existing policy to allow traffic calming measures on collector streets within the city, and a very similar one, consideration of possible action on the request of Alder Stevens to amend the existing policy to include traffic calming measures on all new and reconstructed streets. If you looked at your packet, you realize that there was a list of recommendations that was quite complete. So I'm going to ask Alder Stevens to make any comments he has regarding the packet information.
I have no comments.
No
It
comment.
looked pretty good, so.
I think so too. The only thing I would say about the information in the packet is that there is inference to consideration of changing the numbers for traffic calming in the future. But I think Commissioner Teeter said that 8 months ago or better, that, you know, what's the purpose of having that number if nobody can get to it? So we really need to take a look at that number.
Correct. So, and if Commissioner Teeters has recommendations on potential adjustments, I'm all ears.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because have we actually had calming?
2,
We had 2 in how many years?
policy was adopted, I think, in 2007. Yeah.
Okay, so,
And were those just phase 1, or were those actual
Speed tables.
elevated to phase 2?
Yeah,
Okay, so phase 2 implementation was
We have
completed.
tables in on Farland Avenue, just to the west of Elizabeth Street.
Okay.
When Five Corners was eliminated in 2007, there was a block of Day Street. And the anticipation was cut-through traffic to the mills was then going to divert up to Farland.
On Farland.
So we did the study on Farland and they went in there. When Festival North was built on University Avenue, there
Then I
are ones
remember
on Peters as well.
Yep, yep.
okay. But I really think we need to take a look at that, absolutely. Is there a motion to approve the recommendations?
Actually, I've got a couple of questions. for
Sure. No, go ahead.
Mr. Grenier. So I went through the staff reports. I've got a couple of questions on the items in the staff report, as well as some ideas for making amendments to the traffic calming process. Basically trying to make things a little bit clearer, so that the applicants, when they apply for the traffic calming process, they have a better understanding of what exactly is going to be expected for the data collection process.
Sure.
So number one, I think the recommendations here, I'm okay with, step 1, step 2 of the traffic calming process. I think you do want to have that neighborhood buy-in. And I think the standard that is currently set as far as having 20% or 10 residents, whichever is less, totally fine. The data collection portion of it, though, I think we need to expand on it. And I need to kind of ask staff as well, from a law enforcement standpoint, as well as a data collection standpoint for engineering. Personally, I would prefer that tubes are used in the data collection process, because In this particular instance, data collection for what is a perceived problem should be as inconspicuous as possible. So having a big speed board posted or the trailer out there that flashes somebody's speed, that's already a traffic calming measure number one that's being implemented. So you're not truly understanding what is happening there without that phase one already being in place. So I would recommend that the first part of the data collection process is done with tubes. The second part of that data collection process, as far as the implementation of if the standards are met, then go ahead, use one of the trailers, use one of those implementation methods that is listed here. But then again, I'll go back to the data collection after the implementation of phase one. I'd like to see that go back to the inconspicuous tubes being used. Again, I believe when the traffic calming study was done on Crooks that I had requested, I was told that the data collection was already completed using the speed trailer, which I don't believe is a true apples to apples comparison. Therefore, your traffic study is not really legit in my mind. So that would be my recommendation. I do have some questions as far as the thresholds that are being identified here. Why are we choosing 32 miles per hour? And I mean, if law enforcement is cool with everybody cruising down neighborhood streets at 7 miles an hour over the speed limit, I mean, that's great, but I mean, I generally accept it as 5. I certainly would request to have that reduced at least down to 30 miles an hour. I guess, Steve, this is a question for you. Is the 15%, is that supposed to be like the reverse of the 85th percentile?
I would imagine so. I was not involved in the policy when it was developed in 2007.
Okay.
But
And my understanding of how WisDOT defines the 85th percentile is that it's a sampling of the speeds on the road. It's not a set miles per hour. So I don't know how we can have a set miles per hour here, and it just seems a little bit ambiguous.
the reason that there was a set number is because the policy as defined is only on local streets.
Yep.
Which
So
are.
they're all 25.
They're all posted 25.
Yeah, okay. Okay. And then, yeah, as far as the 35 miles per hour, I think, if you're already getting up to 10 miles an hour over, I think that number is fine. I would like to see a reduction in the 15% down to 30.
Sure.
The cut-through problem threshold, what was the reasoning behind the 1,000 vehicle ADT?
Again, at this point, I'm unsure.
Okay. I've looked at a number of other traffic calming policies, and there are numbers that are kind of all over the place. So I was just curious where we got our 1,000 from. I do know that it's typically defined for local streets as 1,500 or less for local roads. So I don't have a problem with 1,000. I was just curious if we had.
I believe it was drawn from a combination of West Allis and La Crosse.
Okay. Okay.
Good.
Yeah, if there's another place like within the Wisconsin MUTDC or within NACTO or something that they have a set number, maybe that would be better to use. But I guess I'm okay with 1,000. And then I think I had one other. Oh, as far as the. So I just had here a couple of notes, like setting the clear standards for the evaluation of the speed or the process. So I think we have built in here kind of at least one time frame, and I think that's in step 5. It's the follow-up data collection. It's supposed to occur. What did it say? 3 to 6 months after. I could have swore I read that somewhere. But I guess what I would like to see is, if it's not already in here, just some clear guidance or explanation as to how long the phase 1 data collection is going to occur. And then the implementation of a phase 1 traffic calming, how long is that going to be out for? And then again, I think I saw that it was, yeah, it's under step 5, approximately 3 to 6 months, and conduct another speed and or, so that's the only place that we have a time frame. So, but I'm okay with it being 3 to 6 months after. That's fine. Or if commissioners, we want to see that tightened up and a little bit closer to when that phase 1 was implemented, we can always ask for that too. But
The only reason I wouldn't change the timeline is because hopefully by making this easier to access, they might have to do more of them.
yeah, yep. No, that's, and I
That
don't,
would be the
I don't
only
think this is,
reason I would even,
yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
this is gonna dramatically change the process. I think, some of the recommendations that I'm asking for are just better clarification within the policy itself. So,
No, it's been 17 years since the original adoption. It's time to take a look at it.
yeah.
great suggestions.
And then I do have one other note here, just as far as the policy and the recommendation or the impact on future subdivisions goes. Really, I do think the policy and how this is written and how it's implemented is a reactionary document. It's for the existing road network. What I really would like to see done is that a traffic calming concept or language is incorporated into the city ordinances, such as the subdivision ordinance. I think the subdivision ordinance would be a great place to work in some language for potential traffic calming being worked into new subdivision design. That's already where you're setting the standard for your street widths and street layout. So I think there's some potential for inclusion, not necessarily of the policy, but of setting the standard for traffic calming being a broader, widely accepted use across the city. So,
And that would be the exact location that it would go.
yeah, yep, yeah. I was perusing through the DPW's code for construction standards. Like, that's not the place for it.
Nope.
So
Subdivision ordinance
yep.
under design standards. is
Yep,
exactly.
exactly. So, yeah, I think that would be the most appropriate place. And then because subdivision ordinance and zoning code work so closely together, if there's references back and forth between the two, that might be something for planning staff to take a look at if there's ability for that to kind of relate back and forth.
Commissioner Teeters, thank you for sharing with us your expertise, because you're talking about some things I was not aware of. But everything you have said sounds very logical and reasonable. Do you want to work with the staff to come up with amendments and bring this back at the next meeting? Or, Steve, how do you feel about this?
That would, I think I've got them encapsulated, and I think within the next several days, I'm gonna be in and out this week, but maybe shortly after the holiday, I will try to make sure that I've got an email back to Commissioner Teeters to make sure I've got everything captured properly, and then, because it's gonna take, I didn't want this belabored by me sitting down and weeding through the entire policy and redlining it. I wanted to get the information I had back to you. But it's gonna involve taking the entire 2007 policy, and we're gonna have to revamp it to make it more applicable to other than residential streets. Put in that we can have traffic calming, but it's gonna be the phase 1 type things on the collectors and above. The phase 2 is still primarily relegated to some residential collectors. We could consider it, but commercial collectors, it's probably not appropriate place for it. And some expanded language in the proposed red lines, that's gonna take a little bit of work, so I don't wanna hold the whole thing up on that. So,
Okay.
the things Commissioner Peters is talking about would definitely be applicable when we're doing the redlining of the policy itself and then potentially drafting ordinance language for inclusion.
Can we get something back by the next meeting?
I would think so,
Okay.
especially on the ordinance changes, some proposed
Yeah.
ordinance changes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad, I think we're going the right direction.
Yeah.
We can't just do this overnight, so.
Yeah, it hasn't been revived for a few years.
No, I think the last time we modified things was 2019, and that was just a format change, so
Right.
it wasn't anything, there haven't been substantive changes to the policy since 2012.
Does that meet your concerns, Dan?
Yeah, and again, I think broadly speaking, there's a lot of different avenues that we could go and look into even more deeply, but I think just from the policy standpoint, at least from my personal experience with the policy, my frustration was in the data collection portion of it, which
Right.
I felt kind of robbed my neighborhood of an opportunity to implement a traffic calming project.
Right.
And I think if that's better defined and more clear, apples to apples comparison, I think that'll really help the policy be more effective.
Okay.
So I agree from the law enforcement standpoint, the digital signboards we put out definitely have a calming measure of their own. And I've looked at it,
Yeah.
looked at there's small ones that are just on the poles themselves. It's not in our budget right now, they're like 2,400 and 2,900 per one. I'd like to get 2 or 3 of them to be able to collect better data for us. It's not in our budget for this year, so it's probably gonna hold off till next year.
Are you aware of the project that we have going?
No.
There are 38 of them that are being installed in school zones around the city.
Oh, there are.
Yeah. The RRFB project that we had, there are 63 locations for RRFBs. The second part of that RRFB was driver feedback signs. I think there's 38.
And those are a digital sign that goes up?
The digital sign saying your speed and,
Okay. Yeah, because I'm looking to get ones that are just a discrete data collection one, where you're saying that it doesn't have any calming measure to it, it's just giving us straight data.
That would be what we got.
Speed and volume.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing he has.
Okay.
That we,
But they're not gonna be temporary, they're gonna be permanent installed.
Yeah, but they're permanent, but they tell the speed.
Yep.
Yeah,
But they're only in school zones.
Right now, they are in
Right.
school zones.
Yeah, but what we're talking about is ones that don't tell the speed. It's just giving us data.
Oh, just data collection?
Yes, data
Okay.
collection on its own, so we're getting actual data of
Right.
what the speeds are.
but
without
these
any
ones
calming
might do
measure.
that. No?
No, I don't think so.
So I'll try to get that in our budget for next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think those types of speed boards are great in
Yep.
school zones because, I mean, it's a great form of traffic calming.
Right.
You have that speed flashing at people and they're made well aware of, how fast they're going.
Right.
But if you're trying to analyze an area for a traffic calming, perceived traffic calming issue, I really think you've got to be as inconspicuous as you possibly can to
Absolutely.
collect that raw information of people's true habits.
Right.
I just want to work with PD to get them to retool their speed boards because at the posted speed, it currently flashes at you.
Yeah.
Well, we program that. We decide which one it is, so we.
Yeah, I don't like that.
And
I'm
we-
driving the
Well, the
posted
ones we have,
speed, it's flashing at me, telling me I'm doing something wrong.
yeah, the current ones we have, we're putting them well above that.
Yeah,
So I don't know what,
they need to be increased to 1 mile an hour over the posted speed.
yeah, I think we normally don't start them flashing until like 10 or 15 over.
So regarding the school areas, have we installed any yet this year? No.
Are those gonna be able to adjust to when it's a 50-mile-an-hour zone?
That I don't know. Those were, the previous traffic engineer was the one who selected those driver feedback signs.
Okay.
But we haven't ordered them yet, so we gotta get the RFBs up first.
Dan, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Appreciate you sharing your expertise with us, and if you can work with the department, that would be absolutely super. Let's
So the motion would be to refer back to staff?
refer back to staff with the expectation it comes back at the next meeting
With the change.
with the changes. Any further comments?
No?
Is there a second?
Second?
Second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Good. Excellent. Next meeting is June 17th. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Second. Is there a second? Oh, there is a second.
What's this take?
Oh, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much.